Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our executive briefing and roundtable focused on the fast pass to the cloud. My name is Ross Beard. I'm in charge of marketing at Shadowsoft and really excited to bring today's event together and hear from Parag Doshi, former VP of Cloud Platform Services at Anthem and a member of Shadowsoft's advisory board. Also, a few other members of our team, James Chin, CEO, Tim Eck, practice manager, Derek Sutherland, practice manager, and John Dingler, practice manager on the team. A couple of housekeeping items. We really want to keep this session really engaging and interactive. So Parag, as he talks through his journey at Anthem, is going to be asking questions and really trying to, see if he can help you each on a bit more of an individual level. And secondly, to thank you for spending some time and to save you some time later today, we'll be sending over a Dash Door voucher so you can buy yourself some lunch. On that note, I'm going to let a couple of us do some quick introductions, and then we'd love to hear from each of our guests. James, do you want to quickly?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thanks again for the time today. Another quick reminder, we are recording this. So if you guys want to come back and see it later, but there's some other folks on the team and some other customers that we wanted to share some of this with later. So hopefully that's okay with everybody. But again, thank you for the time. I'm James, the CEO, co-founder of Shadowsoft.
And this is Parag Doshi. I am a Shadowsoft advisory board member. I've been fortunate to meet James, and we've been really working together for the past few months, really have a strong alignment with the whole open source movement, I think, over the past 20 years or so at many different accounts. So really excited to be here. What I'd like to do today is share a lot of experiences and would like for everybody to be interactive. Please go ahead and ask questions as often as you like. We can pause and stop. This is a small enough group so that we want to make sure we hit on your questions and dig as deep as you want to in any area.
Kevin, do you want to do a quick introduction for the audience?
Well, sure. This is, I assume you mean Kevin Sullivan?
Yes, sir.
Great. I wasn't sure how many people are on this call, but yeah, be on the call with you all. I'd let you know, Kevin Sullivan. I'm the CEO of Advanced Control Systems, which has been by the very multinational Spanish-based company called Indra. So we go by the name of Minsight ACS. And my focus is really all about changing the environment for grid operators. We have open architectured platforms. We need to deploy a lot more of the cloud and SaaS kind of models to service our customers. But the real objective I have, and the reason I want to join this call, is to see what technology we could actually leverage out there that would allow us to change what an operator does today to manage the grid. That's a fundamental change that we need in the industry. We're, of course, in a very boring industry. Most utilities don't change too rapidly. It's almost like watching paint dry. But there's technology out there that can be deployed and to make that a bit more exciting. And I think the time is ripe now to make that change. And shift in the way people look at the transmission electron and also the distribution electron and figure out how to manage the edge of the grid in a sustainable fashion. We're good to join you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Kevin, let me just say that I don't find your area boring at all. I actually did a lot of work in the area of compute grids, electrical grids, renewable energies, and actually we built here in Atlanta one of the largest solar arrays to connect to the Atlanta grid during the '96 Georgia Olympics. That dates myself, but I find this area very fascinating and interesting and opportunistic.
I think that's great. If we can get that same excitement into our end customers, I think make a huge difference.
Yeah. Good, good.
Matt Brown, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Matt Brown. I work for Fiserv. I'm the Vice President of Platform Architecture. We recently basically acquired and kind of merged with First Data. I'm familiar with them. So many data centers throughout the country and the international now, including cloud. So we use AWS and Azure. We've actually acquired several companies that use GCP and Oracle Cloud. So we kind of crossed the gamut of all those. And we have 100+ data centers. So a lot of rationale right now trying to figure out exactly how we're going to consolidate and collapse those. And I'm kind of involved in a little bit of everything from platform architecture. It includes storage, security, compute, virtualization, OS, pretty much all the infrastructure components. So we have a dedicated cloud team from the infrastructure side, but we work very closely with them, trying to align standards and technologies in line. And most of the cloud, we're not moving everything to the cloud, but we move some things, and we're connecting them as pretty much like another data center for us and how we use that. So still a lot of rationalization about what goes there, and cyber has a lot to say with that, but we're working through it.
You also have the most relaxing backdrop.
I'm in the attic, so you won't see the real background. I'm kind of stuffed away in the house. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. And Andy Paisley, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, guys. Nice to be with you today. I'm Andy Paisley. I'm head of technology for Old Dominion Freight Line. We're a less than truckload transportation carrier based in Thomasville, North Carolina. I've been with the company about 2.5 years. Prior to that, I spent approximately 30 years in retail technology. I was the CIO of Dollar Tree stores and CIO of Advance Auto Parts. We are just beginning the transformation here at Old Dominion to move from very legacy focused AS400 types of application sets over to microservices, and I'm going to be focusing on OpenShift, Kubernetes, take that journey, being very careful about what we actually move there, things that we consider to be sort of differentiating for us. We will continue to run in our own data centers, but ultimately we'll run as much as we possibly can up in someone's cloud, probably Azure at this point. That's who we'd end up working with. Nice to meet you all.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome.
Well, pass it back to Jim.
So there's a couple of folks that might be joining, but we'll let them join and listen in and hopefully interact with us a little later on.
Mm-hmm.
So humor me for a moment. We're going to give you just a very quick background on us. A couple of you guys have done business with us, so you probably know some of this, but this is kind of a good tee up for where the conversation with Parag will go. But just a quick, background on Shadowsoft. We have been in business since 2008, going into our 13th year, and we've been genuinely and consistently focused on open source solutions the entire time. Red Hat's been our biggest partnership, and we are one of their, if not their largest strategic partner in the Southeast. We've got presence in Atlanta, Nashville, Tampa, and Jacksonville. We've really been investing in and a part of the Kubernetes and OpenShift ecosystem since day one. That'll obviously come up later in the conversation with Parag. But that's Kubernetes and containers and OpenShift kind of becoming it appears to be the de facto standard out there right now. It's a big part of what we've been doing literally for the last 5-6 years. So it's something we've invested a lot in, and we feel like we have a lot of value to bring to you guys potentially in your digital transformation efforts. So just to give a little bit about our approach. Yeah, go to the next slide. we kind of see the world with two, simplified personas out there, where the customer wants to understand the art of the possible. They'd like to conceive great ideas that meet the needs of their customers or their shareholders or a particular line of business. And, with our help, the visionary wants to understand what they can possibly do out there. And we'll talk a little bit, Parag will get into that a little bit today. It'll have a little bit of a healthcare stint to it, but it can be applied across multiple industries. In this metaphor, Shadowsoft is the guide. So our role is to help you take these ideas and build out a strategy, underlying infrastructure, and make it a reality. And through some of these conversations with our historical customers, we did identify some pretty important factors around what an SI does that I think is important to outline today. So deep and wide expertise, obviously with some of the digital transformation technology that we'll talk about today, like containers, automation, cloud, monitoring, for example. Breadth of experience, you'll hear that a couple times today. The ability to understand all the different technologies and help you integrate those into a cohesive solution is a pretty big important part of what we do. Solving complex problems. Obviously, all of these technologies present, they're all emerging, so they present all kinds of challenges around integration and solving complex problems. And then finally, something that we really take seriously is the enablement and the knowledge transfer at the tail end of these engagements where you guys want to learn how to fish and you don't want to have outside help in your data center forever. So just a quick hit on some of the certifications. This is just a sample that is probably relevant to today's conversation. Again, the Red Hat thing, we've been doing it forever. We've got representation of certifications pretty much across all of them, across our team. Kubernetes, obviously the CNCF administrator cert is pretty important. And of course, we've got Azure and Amazon represented. We also have some Google expertise as well on staff. And then of course, like I said earlier, the biggest value add is the ability to integrate all these different things across the different platforms as well as different industries with the different industry needs. So the next slide, and really kind of the last part of what I'm going to talk about before I hand it over to Parag, is just a simplified approach for us. It's basically, I'm sure you guys have seen it before. It's not super complicated. We had to understand the problem. So we spent a lot of time in the upfront discovery and assessment phase with our customers. We don't just develop a vision, we develop a shared vision. So one which you guys as customers participate in, and we absolutely bring expertise and context from other engagements we've done, but there's always an element of customization needed to solve the particular challenges of our customers or a particular customer. And then the final phase, build and enable. And we've got examples of all three of these phases with all kinds of different customers that we can get into later on, which is a good segue, I guess, into the kind of what I'm hoping you guys get out of today. What exactly you should expect. So again, we want this to be super interactive. We've got a very small group. I think we were expected 8, we're 3 or 4 right now. So feel free to engage. I don't think we put anybody on mute. So if you want to speak up, unmute yourself and please, chime in. But what we want you to hopefully get from today is to gain some real valuable insight into what a successful digital transformation journey looks like from someone that's done it. And that's Dr. Parag Doshi. One of the biggest things I think he'll hit on today is not to do this alone. Trying to use some of the legacy, assets and resources within your organization really leads to a delayed, success. And, everything right now, especially with what we're dealing with the economy, with COVID, is all about making big impacts as fast as you can. And then, at the end, or as you go through this, please think of how Parag's story might apply to yourself and how it might apply to Shadowsoft and how we might help you. We've got a lot of expertise to bring to bear, and we'd love to have an opportunity to talk to you guys And that is sort of the takeaway from a call to action perspective, is that we'd love to have an opportunity to spend more time with you guys individually, you know, as a follow-on to this meeting. So that's our goal at the end of this, is to hopefully set up a second or third follow-up conversation with you guys. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to do a quick introduction for Dr. Dashi. 25 years experience in engineering apps, doctorate from Georgia Tech. Obviously was at Anthem most recently. He led their cloud platform services and the digital transformation around cloud, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Built that organization from the ground up, established hybrid cloud using some of the Red Hat technologies we'll talk about, and was able to move 100 mission critical apps to the cloud within 12 months. So, but prior to that, he was the chief technologist and head of architecture for HP's virtual private cloud and platform offerings. And again, is part of our advisory board here at Shadowsoft. So welcome, thank you for coming, and thank you for your time today. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Dashi.
All right, very good. Before I get into the agenda, everybody can hear me okay? Right, so I want to make sure, just reiterate again, guys, please ask questions along the way. Andy, Matt, Kevin, any of our customers and partners here, please feel free to interrupt. It's not important that I finish all the content here. In fact, I worked a lot with the Shadowsoft team to really take a presentation that I did at AWS reInvent and had many lessons learned, and then we tried to pick some of the top 3 lessons learned. So as we go through this, think about your experiences, your challenges in your enterprise, not only technology challenges, but also alignment challenges, organizational challenges, and you know, ask, and you know, we can have an interactive discussion of whether I've seen this as well. My experience has not only been at Anthem, but prior to that, I was at Hewlett Packard for 20 years, actually building out a cloud environment. We created around $400 million of revenue per year that's still being generated for now DXC, since HP is broken up into 3 or 4 large corporations. So that's nowhere near the size of even the smallest of the big 3, Google, in terms of revenue and market share. It still represents an experience of having to work on, you know, both sides of the firewall. One, building out a cloud and helping customers tie into our private cloud offering from a multi-tenant perspective. And then as well, when I joined, I had an amazing opportunity to join and lead the transformation at Anthem and see things from the other side's perspective of how do you actually conduct an end-to-end transformation. And one of the key eye-openers for me personally was just, that was one of the most difficult things I've ever done. And I don't think transformation is ever done. People ask me, hey, Parag, did we finish transformation at Anthem? I would say we've got the tip of the iceberg there. You know, actually getting a cultural transformation at a company like Anthem is a tall order. And the reason why I think Anthem was one of the harder conversions or transformations is because we had just been on the wake of a very large breach. In 2015, Anthem was the unfortunate recipient of the world's largest healthcare breach in 2015. And it was pretty fascinating that we started off the first time building out an office of CTO and hiring me as a cloud VP to conduct this transformation. And perhaps I should have asked a few more questions before taking that assignment, but that was an experience that hopefully today I can share a lot of that with you. And then of course we'll have follow on with James and the folks here to drill into your specific areas. So again, ask along the way. This is the agenda we had planned. Really just starting off on what actually drives cloud adoption, what I've seen, you know, some of the 8 major reasons, if you will, for driving cloud adoption. I did draft this before the pandemic that we're all, you know, challenged with right now. All I think right now is there's more of a run on cloud. So it's more just really accentuating our needs for using cloud, emerging technology, and digital transformation. But the hard part here is how do you execute that from an end-to-end perspective? So we'll talk about some of the drivers to cloud. I've narrowed down to 3 lessons learned. That's a hard thing to do. There's a lot of lessons learned, but how at Anthem we were able to at least start off the process and actually achieve a lot of progress. If someone asks me, Parag, did we do the Geoffrey Moore crossing the chasm? Have we really made a dent and done things like, Capital One, which has a major transformation to cloud? I would say Anthem still is a few years away from that. We've got a 4-year strategy to get there, and there's a lot of work along the way, but what was done in 12 months is quite remarkable. And then finally, we wanted to have more of a specific, more questions, answers, executive roundtable discussion. I'll pause there. Hopefully this agenda works for everybody. Okay. So let me go to the next slide. Okay. So like James had mentioned, the last couple of years have been where I focused on the healthcare space, really digitalizing healthcare. So some of these statistics I'll share with you are specific to healthcare, but I think the transformation and the challenges are very much applicable everywhere. And that resonated well when I helped customers move to HP's clouds and when we provide managed services at HP towards all 3 of the major cloud providers. And as well, we actually had a multi-cloud platform as a service initiative, which involved OpenShift and Pivotal as well for our customers. So I see a lot of similarity no matter what industry I've been dealing with. If I click on healthcare, I find this fascinating that when I compare to, Matt, you're at Fiserv, and I look at our financial services clients, right, when I was at HP. In contrast to financial services, in healthcare, we always seem to be the last ones to take up technology, but we have the same regulatory concerns, right? In the case of financial services, you worry about things like PCI compliance, SOX compliances in both industries. But healthcare has been very slow to adopt emerging technology in general. We can go to an ATM anywhere in the world and get, $500 out of that ATM, yet today in healthcare, you can see one of those statistics, 81% of consumers and the healthcare ecosystem is unsatisfied with the current experience. We can't even share our MRI results or our test results with a doctor across the street. Okay, and this is actually unacceptable. I'll give you a little bit of story. My own daughter, I was in Mexico, and we were celebrating my birthday with a bunch of the guys, and my daughter ends up going to the hospital. So her heart's beating really fast, and I was really worried, right? Well, there are 10 different doctors involved here, a cardiologist, other specialists, electrocardiologists, and endocrinologists, trying to figure out what's going on with my daughter. None of them had information. It was me as the patient, our family, that had to speak to each doctor and bring them each up to speed on the latest test results. And when a doctor would say, oh, well, we're waiting on this test, I'd be like, no, we actually have this. So even within one hospital, the sharing of information was terrible. Costs are only increasing. This is a pre-pandemic number, an actual statistic, $32,000 per household. And our, overall, when we try to measure, what's the state of healthcare, it's actually not getting much better. More people have chronic illness, and chronic illnesses are those diseases or ailments that last for a potential lifetime that can't be solved in a few visits. And, what I'll contend to you is that IT has an opportunity to actually enable the solution to a lot of these problems, but right now it's in the way. We are not even set up even close to that. I'm going to share a little future vision of what healthcare could be like. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of technical difficulty with echoes trying to get the audio to work, so you'll have to bear with my own narration here. But, you'll be able to see the art of the possible here. So let me just start this quick little video. Yes, this is safe to open. It's only 60 seconds, so it'll go rather fast. And so if we look at what the future looks like, we're talking about augmented reality, remote telemedicine, VR goggles. Doctor could be working from anywhere. Now this doesn't exist, but surgery, we need 5G technology, heads-up display in mobile settings, direct communication with doctors, connectivity, real-time sensors to measure your biometrics, a heads-up display. Hey, look, we've detected low iron deficiency. Send this meal to the kitchen. And this woman happens to be pregnant. Hey, let's go do an ultrasound right here at home and share that with the family. So I think it's a lot nicer when you can hear the video and the music and all, so you'll have to bear with my boring voice here. But this is the opportunity that we have in healthcare alone, and there's a similar vision, I'm sure, in every one of our industries. And we want our emerging technologies to actually be an enabler to those visions. I think since the pandemic, a lot of people are concerned about their jobs and, you know, is there going to be enough work out there? Everything I tell my own teams is, guys, there's so much work out there. Look at this vision. The only limitation really is our own imagination. And so one of the things that I presented at AWS and other places is really innovation at the speed of our imagination. So it's all about the execution. It's all about putting our imagination to work. And I think for the rest of this, if you can paint that sort of vision, which we are not here today, let's talk about how do we go through a transformation? What are some of the pitfalls and lessons that I've learned through this transformation? And then I'd like for everybody to, especially during the roundtable, share your experiences and see how we might be able to help you here at Shadowsoft. There's arrows. All right. So when we're looking at embracing any new emerging capability, it's important to know why we would drive to that emerging technology. These were 8 reasons that we came up with and actually presented to the Anthem CTO, CIO, the C-level leadership just underneath the Anthem board of the company when we established our office of CTO. And you can see there are many, many reasons why people will gravitate towards using cloud. I think the second one there, performance and reliability, is becoming even more essential since the pandemic. It's all about, you know, people working remotely. And so why should you really care where your systems and servers are? I'll say that with a grain of salt. I think, especially in regulated industries, we tend to worry about where our data is sitting and adequate compliance and security around that. I will say that if Anthem can move in this direction, I actually am now of the opinion that every company can move in this direction. It's just a journey that you're not going to do overnight. In our case, we had a lot of challenges, especially to build out all the security controls, and I'll talk about that. And data security was one of the key ones that Anthem really had to provide some controls which are not even available in the healthcare industry. So why do I bring that up is while we conducted this transformation, I'll talk about the FastPass as one of our solutions to get there faster. We didn't start off with moving our data to the cloud. Okay, so that's one of the final frontiers is how do we get our protected data, PHI data, in high trust and HIPAA compliant environments. So these are things that will actually slow things down. And another prerequisite that I found is more organizational. You know, how many resources do you have to actually do it? And that's where Shadowsoft, I think, can help, and you'll have other partners. This is not something typically done with one partner only. in order to get the best skills there. It's really driven by how many skills you have that are willing to say, hey, down with the old, let's look at some of the newer technologies. Moving to something like cloud really requires you to rethink everything. So the three circles here showed Anthem's primary reasons. So I asked the executive board there, what are the reasons why Anthem is looking at cloud? Everybody immediately gravitated towards cost reduction, total cost of ownership reduction. And I almost felt bad for putting that as an option there because it's too simple to say that's what we want. And one of the things I can tell you, it's not one of my lessons learned, but I think it is still something that I've learned through the process is don't go to your board and promise enormous infrastructure savings. You know, if you end up doing the calculations, the TCO calculations with any of the cloud providers and compare it to your own enterprise, you're going to end up with a race condition and a huge political battlefield, really, on whether or not you'll actually save money and when you would save money. I think there is the ability to do that, but that pales in comparison to the other two reasons, which I really felt more comfortable signing up to. We actually did sign up, just so you know some numbers. We found out around $140 million of addressable spend that we could take out. In our case, we had a lot of that in contracts with IBM, and there was a lot of contracts that made this very difficult with our relationship with IBM. So really what I had to go after was increased utilization. In our case, we were about 10% utilized, and I could promise about 60% greater utilization if we did the right things in terms of a cloud operations model. And if there are folks interested in that, about what kind of operating model we put in place, then that's something we can talk about afterwards. It's not a subject of what I brought up here today, but the operating model is really key in how we manage our costs. The other two were really compelling. I really found it important in terms of how quickly we could go to market. One of the goals of Anthem was we wanted to create a brand new business, a pharmacy benefits management business. So whether it's a merger or acquisition or a divestiture in our case, where we had a company called IngenioRx. This has been communicated to Wall Street as a major promise from Anthem to actually build out a high margin pharmacy benefits management business using what was built in Anthem, but ultimately divesting that completely from Anthem so that that technology and that business could be used for even Anthem's customers and all of the Blues that are out there. And, you know, I probably should have told you what is Anthem, just assuming everybody has heard of that. That's the IT is headquartered right here in Atlanta, so there are 2 new buildings that have been built there. Anthem is the largest portion of the Blues or the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association, and about 1 in 4 Americans are covered by Anthem. And you know, as with any healthcare payer, we have been able to collaborate across government for Medicare, Medicaid, commercial businesses, and employers like many that are likely to use Anthem here, and members directly to members, to pharmacies, to providers, to doctors, to healthcare network providers. So it's the second largest, not the world's, the second largest payer in the United States. And to come up with a brand new business like IngenioRx, and to do that in less than a year, this was the goal. And that's something that really resonated with us because we actually built out the IngenioRx, went live January 2020 with that business, and that is built completely in AWS. Okay, so that's one of the key business drivers for us. And then the third one is innovation. We actually carved out, separate from our legacy IT organization, or our enterprise IT organization, a digital organization, which wanted to build out an AI platform and you know, really spearhead a lot of our fast path to cloud movement. So these were the 3 major reasons that Anthem really resonated with. And we also set a goal and we said, not only do we want to build out platforms, I would say I had to convince the board that, my title was Cloud Migration Leader, and I actually added Cloud Platform Services there. So we did say, the power of the platform is the key thing. In the case of Anthem, there was very little patience to say, let's take 6 months to a year to build out a platform. But really, that is what ended up really happening, is if you look at our data here, as at the beginning, all the blue is our successfully migrated applications. The board wanted to see 50 applications in 1 year, okay? And this is about midway through. You can see we are far away from our dotted line here, the green goal. Okay, let me move the cursor here, the green dotted line here. And this jump here, you can see the quarterly progress of what we did is really the key point, that one of the key lessons learned that I want to make here is really building out that Kubernetes-centric platform as a service. And by platform as a service, it's more than a container platform. It's a combination of a container platform and a DevSecOps set of controls and tooling associated with that. And that's really what caused a large jump for us in the summer of 2019. And you could see that we had participation from all of the different business units at Anthem. And let me pause there just for a moment, because then I'm going to switch to the actual lessons learned. But I wanted to show this slide here. I'll just pause for 10 seconds here if there are any questions. Okay, if not, I'm going to talk about some of the lessons learned. One of them I already mentioned, but I'll drill into that. And again, if any of these resonate with you, or if you want to drill into that further, just interrupt, or Ross, I don't know if they can raise hands or not, but ask questions along the way.
Yep.
Okay. So the first one is this establishing a platform. If you look at what Amazon, Microsoft, Google have done for the global corporations, not just in America, it's really the power of the platform, right? It's really saying no matter what business problem, what application you want to build, you need to provide a platform, a set of services that underlie whatever solution architecture you're going to build. It's really hard to say, hey, let's take a few months and build out the platform. But when you do that, I have found that building out this platform brings a lot of consistency and gives you an opportunity to move applications to cloud faster, and you get business value much faster. And I'll drill into that. The second point is, while we thought that this platform would really accelerate things, it did buy us time, but we could not get away from existing technical debt. When I'll talk about this some more, you'll see that Anthem first started carving out from existing people and trying to get a lot of part-time help and utilize a lot of the solutions we already had in place for authentication, authorization, key management, security controls, monitoring controls, and that ended up not working so well. So we'll talk about that as the second point. And the third one is more organizational and the operating model, which is related to the second point, which is until you really have a dedicated focus on this, it's really too hard of a transformation, and you won't get the political buy-in. So how you create that operating model and how you align people to focus on this and adopt new technologies is really going to be a measure of success, along with how many people you have that can push that. So how do we migrate? A lot of you might be familiar with in Hewlett-Packard, I think I had 8 R's. If you look here, what are all the different methods people use to migrate, rehost, replatform, refactor, re-architect. repurchase, retire is perfectly good. You know, a lot of work in our intake process and our governance process was just to retire a lot of duplicate functionality, and that's really what you need to do. Remember, the objective was not just to get applications to cloud, but also to really conduct a transformation and give access to innovation and services that are available in all of the cloud providers. So if you say that, okay, we're past the retiring and we're not going to replace, obviously look at replacing things as well, repurchase with a SaaS model, right? In the case of Anthem, we used our own homegrown HR systems, and then we started looking at Workday, and we actually did use the Oracle Cloud as well. So we used the Oracle HR systems for that, and actually deprecate a lot of our own code there. So always look at repurchase and all these other gray areas first. But what we started off in our journey was really saying, okay, we want to move fast. I've got 50 applications to migrate. I've got to build out a platform in less than a year. I've got to build an organization. I'm the only hire, and you know, we're going to build that organization. Ultimately, we built it up to about 100 people. We had help from several partners as well. But where we started is saying, hey, let's go with lift and shift. Okay, let's rehost this stuff and let's move really quickly and start to reposition applications in the cloud. We looked at technologies like Cloud Endure, and there are many to choose from, MoveAir, other tools. AWS also has scanners that will go into your on-prem environment and give you, you know, which ones are going to be hard and so forth. I'm here telling you that that experience of rehost failed. While that appears to be the fastest way to move to cloud, we could never really get CIOs to give true buy-in to that. You can see the arrows on the right. The increased value is inverse with the ease of migration. So while there's a lot of automation and tooling out there to rehost, and I think there are some low-hanging fruit that might make that seem simple to do, I have not found many CIOs willing to migrate applications with very little benefit. I will say that there's a caveat there, because after we have gotten some success, then an executive mandate can make things a lot easier, provided you have the foundation built in place. So if you guys have the cover of at least an EVP level or CEO level to push people that they've got to modernize their applications and drive metrics to that, there is a possibility that rehost will work, but you're going to get a lot of the owners of the businesses and the applications say, well, why are you moving to cloud? I don't really know. I've just been told that I have to do this by a certain time. So what I've found is really in most circumstances, you have to deliver some value with that transformation. Or you have to have some major initiative, like we will be shutting down n number of data centers within a short period of time, and I've got to get out of that physical location. Those are some exceptions, but even still, it'll be very hard to rehost a large part of your portfolio. In the case of Anthem, I had 3,400 applications, and 4 years was strategized to move 50% of the applications. And we said mainframe is not part of this. We actually did tackle mainframes. That's another topic. So this is an excerpt from Stephen Orban's book, Ahead in the Cloud. He's now at AWS. What I added to this is this containerization, which you could say maybe that's a form of replatforming, but I found this to be the most compelling, most certain way to do this, both while I was at Hewlett-Packard and helping many customers of HP, and also while at Anthem. And let me double click on this. The reason why, one of the reasons is because there are already tools out there to quickly assess how you can containerize your applications. And I went on a road show to all the 5 major cities that Anthem had, its largest IT staff, And we talked about how we could quickly do assessments and how containerization is actually the way we would build our applications if we could do it over. And it is close enough to a lift and shift. You know, we've got a lot of engineers that may be on this call, and I may be oversimplifying there, but at least there are tools there, and there's a lot of knowledge base from tools like Red Hat Application Migration Toolkit. Pivotal has a tool called Snap. There are many others, and you don't have to target their Kubernetes platform either, okay? Rancher is out there. You could download Kubernetes straight, and Kubernetes and Docker straight from open source areas. But this is close enough to lift and shift if you're willing to live with a lot of the frameworks and some of the middleware that's in your application. So this is what I found gives you an opportunity to provide just enough improvements, such as security improvements, while quickly migrating applications using tools that are out there. And then the final point here, you can see in green here that there's a lot of studies. This is just one by McKinsey, which said, you know, the combination of containers along with DevOps actually has improved time to market by 70%. And that's everything, including the migration, including the DevOps enablement, including the better application density as well. So this is really the summary of the first lesson learned, which is really consider containerization as your fast path to cloud. And I heard, Matt, I heard you talk about the fact that you are already in multiple clouds. I would say Anthem did the same thing. We were accidentally in multiple clouds, which isn't the best way to do it, but that's where we are. And I found out that, you know, obviously both at HP, at Anthem, for all of our customers, building out a compute abstraction that can run anywhere really provides the maximum flexibility for multi-cloud. And there's a lot of R&D work on multi-cloud. Parts of it works, parts of it does not. So a multi-cloud is still a bit elusive, and it'd be another good technical conversation we can have another day. But the Kubernetes platform as a service provides a good layer of abstraction. I heard a question or a comment, someone?
Yeah, Parag, this is Kevin Sullivan. I have my first question to you is really, how do you go about selecting the cloud platform, and what are your recommendations out there?
Right. So here's what I do. I try to select a standard first. Okay. So Docker provided the standard for portability. Okay. So at an executive level, you don't want to tie yourself. You'd like to not tie yourself with one cloud. You've really got to work with your team and decide, are you multi-cloud or are you going to be primary cloud? Anthem was accidentally multi-cloud. I think we went towards a primary cloud because we saw the same issues as we tried to add Azure and Google. So first pick a standard. Docker was our container standard, and then Kubernetes has 90% adoption. Okay, and in our case, I chose OpenShift after doing a bake-off. So I was a new guy at Anthem, and one of the first things we did with our technology workshops was to do a bake-off and looked at a lot of things like security. With OpenShift, one of the things that was impressive was, you know, no access to root, a real, you know, secure Linux. And then for a company the size of Anthem, you know, that's a $100 billion company. I'm a new Office of CTO, VP. I couldn't really bet on what I didn't feel like Pivotal was really, this is my own opinion, so don't really take this too far because I know I've made Pivotal work at HP as well. But I felt like Pivotal at the time, the beginning of 2019, was still re-architecting PKS. We had made a decision to go towards Kubernetes. AWS and us were partnering with that, so I also supported EKS. And that was my own thinking about, you know, the future or the crystal ball. And, you know, maybe I make 9 out of or 8 out of 10 futuristic decisions right and 2 of them wrong. So that's how we picked the specific vendors. But when I brought Red Hat in, I let them know very quickly, listen, I can switch from that, on a dime. Look at what some of the retail companies are doing, as they fear AWS getting into their marketplace. They're looking at, hey, let's just go straight to Kubernetes. In my case, skills also was an important factor, right? I didn't have enough Kubernetes skills. After I built up the organization, now I can say, listen, Red Hat, if you don't continue to innovate, and they are, if you look at their last conference, they're now doing multi-cluster Kubernetes management, right? But if they don't continue to innovate and push themselves, well, then we can go straight back to open source, and my team will support it. So I think it's a progression in time. I hope that answers your question, Kevin. There's a lot of factors in choosing the right thing. Start with the standard, look at it from a technology and pricing perspective, and also a business perspective.
Yeah, it might be a follow-on question to get in detail. We're primarily a Red Hat shop right now. All our applications run on Red Hat. So
Okay.
we kind of need to focus on where the best tools are available as well, and how quickly it would be to go to 100% cloud.
When you talk to IBM, I made my decision before the acquisition of Red Hat. I would like to say because IBM essentially owns the IT of Anthem, or 75% of it, maybe they copied my decision. I don't know. Maybe that's too much credit, but it's as long as it stays separate from the culture of IBM, or the culture of IBM is now improved because of the open source innovation, then I think you'll be okay with Red Hat. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you.
Sure. I think in the interest of time, this is a little more techie, but just looking at the progression, obviously as we move to containers and serverless functions, both of these run on these Kubernetes. It's not really just a container platform, it's also a serverless platform, but with portability. So if you're focused only on AWS or a primary cloud or Azure, you have the opportunity to use the cloud native Kubernetes like AKS in Azure, EKS in AWS, and now they've got the Fargate version, which makes things a whole lot simpler. But you're going to have to wire in all your DevOps tooling. Okay, so that's another thing, that these container platforms are semi-opinionated, but that speeds up your integration. Do you want to spend time doing your own integrations, or do you want to spend time integrating this platform with your runtime platform as a service, along with all the DevOps tools and now the DevSecOps tools? So it becomes a hard thing, and in our case, OpenShift has this stuff pre-integrated and has a plug and play. In the case of Anthem, we could swap out Jenkins for some of our application teams because they had a lot of Bamboo CI/CD pipelines, and integrate that in. I think also I wanted to say that it's also one of the cheaper ways to run applications. The application density is very high. You can leverage the infrastructure to scale up, scale down. You're going to promote a microservices architecture, although you can see with the right diagram, things become more complex. And there's a lot of innovation around service mesh and security around service mesh. I think that's an area of interest that could be another drill down conversation as well. Ultimately, you want to make sure that you're increasing your deployment frequency and you have the right operations around this. So we actually established a central team for our container platform for OpenShift across all of the different business units in Anthem for managing our OpenShift and our DevSecOps clusters for all the different consumers. We also, in some cases, if they wanted their own thing, then we could say, okay, go use something like EKS if you're in AWS, and we supported that as well. And in some cases, that was supported by the individual business units. So let me, any more questions on that first lesson? That really, I want to tell you that really works. It's not just something that worked at Anthem. It was the only way we could get the success of 50+ applications at Anthem, was to essentially provide an abstraction layer on top of all the legacy processes. And so it bought us time. Now if you say, hey, Parag, can you go without a container-based platform? I want to just go straight onto EC2s, S3s, EBS, and all in AWS, same comparison in an Azure landing zone or a Google folder structure? Yes, you can, but it will depend on how much you have utilized tools and techniques which are traditionally on-prem and brought that into cloud. If there are no other questions, that actually is a good segue to lesson number 2. So lesson number 2 came as a result of, in my experience, I used the landing zone that was initially created, the AWS landing zone. Think of that as an environment, a nurturing environment on which applications would be deployed. We used the one that was already built before I got there. And it was built by people that really used some of the new technologies, but had a lot of old baggage that they carried with them. And it's like, you know, you're bringing your luggage into cloud. Like if you guys would say, hey, Parag, come in and have dinner with my family and I say, oh, thank you. You know, I'm going to bring my own furniture. I'm going to rip out your rug and push in my rug. That would just be totally odd and would never work, right? It just doesn't make sense. It's not nimble. It's not going to be agile. You've got to use the basic fabric of cloud. In the case of Anthem, we had, you know, everything backhauling to on-prem, and we refused to conquer that technical debt. So authentication had to be done on-premise. And I think there's some legitimate reasons for that still, but we had everything go back to on-prem. We had DNS was resolved on-premise as well. We had firewalls that had very strict policies. We, of course, needed to have our data security, but there's a lot of things that made us bring a lot of baggage into cloud. Ultimately, what my key sponsor, the highest level of IT besides the CTO, was the Chief Digital Officer, and said, Parag, even though you have this container platform, somehow you managed to make even AWS as slow as on-premise. And so it ultimately became a big wall that I couldn't get around 40 or 50 applications to cloud because our volumes grew too much and we couldn't create new account structures enough, and we had too many rules that were not really cloud friendly. And we can go through those maybe at another time. There's a whole list of 35 things we had to automate. We got 30 of them automated. We ended up building a new landing zone. AWS, as one example, has a control tower offering, and that's a little bit rigid. And I did a bake-off with that service along with AWS Landing Zone to vend accounts. In other words, pre-built AWS environments, which would integrate in our monitoring, our logging, our security services, but would drive us to more cloud-native services. And each of those cloud-native services was a major executive debate. You know, can I use keys in AWS? Can I trust the keys in AWS? Do I have to use a hardware security module to, where do I put the keys? So these were all these things that each one ended up being a cloud steerco discussion that, that would really just make things go longer and longer. And ultimately we had to say, okay, I need to rebuild the landing zone and use more cloud native services. Well, that was rejected. And it's unfortunate that things happen this way, but what happened is the Q3 of 2019, we suffered 27 outages and in Anthem, and that's unacceptable. You know, if you can't get your EpiPen at CVS in time, then someone could die. And that's unfortunately the way the rude awakening happened at Anthem, and we said, okay, now we're going to embark on recreating this landing zone. Parag, you're going to be able to use more of the, not all, a lot of the cloud native services, and then that's ultimately what allowed us to speed up, take out a lot of the security exceptions as well, because cloud native services like Security Hub actually comes with a lot of the visibility that we need and the control that we need. Firewalls are still a big battleground. In fact, that was, we used checkpoint firewalls, and we used them all throughout our connectivity to on-prem. We could never get that to work. I couldn't get my operations team to really figure out root causes. All we knew is when we removed firewalls from all the intra-application communications, then things would work. But then, you know, the deal I made with our CISO, and that was the key, the relationship with the CISO and the cloud VP. You cannot ever break that relationship. That's the most important relationship besides your own management sponsorship. We had to provide visibility and control in different ways using the cloud native services. So I had to prove how by removing certain firewalls, I could create the right combination of security groups, a few NACLs, a network access control list, and many other features in Amazon service control policies to really remove some of the checkpoint firewalls. Now, that sounds like I'm against firewalls. Checkpoint has taken us a long way, but you know, if you look at some of the newer technologies and some of the service mesh technologies where we can actually get some control shim right with each and every pod as a sidecar, I think that's going to be the ultimate way to still provide the security and control that we'll need. But you have to be able to get rid of that technical debt, or else you're going to continue to not even move at the snail's pace towards your imagination. Any questions on this one? Because the last one is non-technical. I'll go through this and then we'll have the roundtable and we can talk about all three and maybe a few others that I won't name. This one is really about the people, the culture, and the organizational construct. So here I am hired as a program leader, and I established these green teams, a cloud platform team, the platform architecture team, obviously a PMO type of function. I actually don't like that name, PMO, as we've done more of a scaled agile model, but project and product management is really what grew out of this platform team. And one of the lessons I don't have here is the shift from projects to product. So all these green teams ultimately end up being more of a product organization and an enablement team to migrate applications. These other teams, for the first, I'd say 9 or 10 months of 2019, our migration was over to 12 months, was these matrix teams of operations, security, and data. And this is the beg, borrow, and steal method. We had operations for all on-premise and cloud operations, and for all the different clouds we were accidentally in. You know, our operations team supported AWS because I told them to, but ultimately we had to create a separate cloud operations team with 100% focus on cloud. That was the ultimate key, because if you think of a baseball analogy, here I am migrating applications like a pitcher into cloud, but then there's no catcher that's going to be operating this. And you cannot go to an OpEx model for IT and not have anybody manage the operations. So cloud operations had to be segmented off, still the same HR and reporting structure, matrix, however, it was 100% focus. And the same had to be done for security and data as well. I think getting this organization right, getting the governance right, and the key thing of having focus is essential. Otherwise, you have silos that quickly build up, and you find out there are cracks in how much alignment you have. In Anthem, the first time we saw a major breach again was the Capital One breach. And I found out some of the folks that were actually very aligned with us in the Office of CTO and driving this actually said, hey, wait, Parag, we got to kill the whole program because Capital One was breached. And then, you know, shortly thereafter, AWS said, hey, look, this has nothing to do with Capital One, right? You know, it's a default password that was exposed by a former employee, right? And so no amount of controls probably would have fixed that. That's more of a people issue. So that's my lesson number 3, is how you organize is important. The culture was important, creating a culture of experimentation. Before all of this, we had to really, there's a bureaucratic process to even do experimentation. And one of the first things I did was to flip that on 180 degrees. I said, listen, If people don't start to do enough proof of concepts, then I'm going to dock you on your performance review. So it was an exact opposite alignment of saying, hey, look, I called it the $0 proof of concept process. If it doesn't cost the company anything, I've got a vendor coming in like a Red Hat or a Pivotal or whomever to try out some things. I want to try that out and you know, succeed forward or fail forward really quickly. So this is a summary of what I just said. That last one, I don't think I touched on much, which is the Tiger team was a good shortcut. A Tiger team was an architectural and a design team that cut across all of those different pillars that I showed. That didn't happen till the last quarter of the transformation, and I had to insist on getting the best architects from each of the teams. I was not so concerned about reporting structure. It's really a virtual organization. Retain the structure, but get dedicated full-time of these people. And another big thing was we set up this Tiger team and war rooms. We gave a lot of decision-making to that Tiger team. And that's what really helped us, you know, all the debates that elevated all to the cloud steer code that was above me. That's the CTO, the CIO, the CISO, and all the CIO consumers of our cloud services. They could see what the debates that had happened for weeks in the Tiger team and the designs that were produced and the alignment of people 3 levels below them, which really helped us provide recommendations in a more crisp fashion to our EVPs. I think that's it, yeah. So